Hey guys, thank you for being patient with me. It's been a hell of a few days. Broke my foot, dealing with a teething baby, and lots of other drama going on. But I appreciate all of your patience in letting it get to the point where we can actually have a show. I did postpone yesterday for similar reasons, but still been trying to adapt to my new circumstances. Turns out I was walking on a broken foot for 3.5 weeks. Since my belt test at martial arts, I actually broke my foot during the test. I thought it was just like a sprain or whatever. Uh, Stayed off it for a little bit, got back on it, and that ended up causing a problem. So, been trying to deal with that situation. Although I'm happy to report that I did get one of those boots, and also got a knee scooter. So that way I can actually have some kind of mobility. Got this off of Facebook Marketplace for very affordable, and it was new in box. So I'm very thankful for that. It's like my son is a little busy in the background. So yeah. That's basically why I've been late dealing with all of that. But thank you all for your patience as usual. I really appreciate it very much. So okay, we're going to be moving on through the Cognitive Temples. So season 18, Cognitive Mechanics, episode 21, and I believe the next temple in the list. Let me see here. Let me verify that I'm doing this correctly. Is the Heart Temple, because it is the next abstract temple. So the Temple of Passion. So we're going to move over here to our screen sharing mode, and we're going to check that out. If you guys don't remember, this is the Introducing Cognitive Temples with Chris Taylor article released by John Bodine. I think this was released back in September. And we're basically going through this material and fleshing it out as part of Season 18, because it is an integral part of Season 18, which is the temples. Remember, the temples used to be named the quartets. At least that's how I initially presented them. But we had to adjust the nomenclature so that people could get used to it, and or at least kind of integrate it within the test. You know, and looking at the test right here, for example, we're going to have an entire section in here devoted to temple, and it's going to have 4 slots like house. So it's not going to be additional house, but we're going to be adjusting this interface and taking pieces of it and putting it on the left and the right, bottom and the top, etc. And yeah, it'll be awesome. Although, in terms of the extra pieces that are going for using the type grid, we might have like a swipe feature between like left and right, and being able to look at the other vectors, because these vectors are down here for using the grid, etc. So we're not entirely sure how that's going to change, but we do have a UX developer, finally an actual dedicated front-end user experience dev on the team, which is great to have. And he's just specializing in helping us make the interface not look like Windows 95. And we're just going to improve it from there. So it is the temple of drama, actually. So how did you know? It is the temple of drama. Now, I will admit, I am questioning a little bit about the order of which I'm presenting these, because the order is based on input, process, output, feedback, like what we've been talking about in Season 18. And there's so many different ways to play with the functions and so many different ways to present this. So I'm just going to try to stay on the track that we did from the last episode. But honestly, like, there are certain different ways to do this, because in each combination, it really just depends like what the introverted function actually is. Because it's as if there is an introverted function that ends up being like the whole point or the whole focus of each of the temples. Like the temple itself is actually trying to produce like a primary introverted function, and that represents like the actual essence of the temple itself. The reason why I say that is because if you look at extroverted functions, technically don't exist. They're not causes, they're effects, right? It's just like how you could say, like, there's no such thing as cold, it's just absence of heat, so that's an extroverted function, right? It's the same thing with an extroverted function, same approach, okay? So when it comes to, you gotta understand that it's the introverted functions that are actually conscious, and the cause is conscious, but the effect is not conscious. It's an unconscious thing. So technically, extroverted functions are aspects of unconsciousness, while introverted functions are aspects of consciousness. Okay? So I want you all to like see things different in terms of extroverted and introverted when it comes to certain functions, etc. I've always said that, well, it's really just the introverted functions that exist and the extroverted functions don't exist. Well, that's technically true. More accurately, it's to say that the introverted functions are conscious and the extroverted functions are not. And that's not to say that the introverted functions can't become unconscious and the extroverted functions could become conscious, basically. That's a throwback to Jung, etc., when it comes to utilizing cognitive transition and then going into the different four sides of the mind. You always got to make sure you're keeping a track of that as well. So I do apologize for all of the changing nomenclature as we go out through this, but don't forget, I'm learning as well and developing, the practice and what we know about the science as we continue to go through this process. And sometimes we just discover better ways of explaining things. And so far, as near as I could tell, the best way to explain introverted functions versus extroverted functions from a comparative differential point of view is just that the introverted functions are the ones that are conscious and the extroverted functions are the ones that are unconscious. That's not to say that their roles could not reverse. And if you think about it from that point of view, it really actually increases one's understanding of the four sides of the mind, because you can kind of see where you have the positives, which is the introversion functions, versus the negatives, which would be the extroverted functions, and all that magnetic polarity within the soul basically pulling people in different directions. It's kind of like all of a sudden you have a voice in your head. Like, so for example, my ESFP demon, like when it has its voice, it's always demanding fairness. It wants fairness, and the ISFJ side is trying to provide fairness for the ESFP, but the ESFP is like, the ISFJ is doing a really crappy job, and it's because the ENTP ego is taking all the intention from me, basically, and hogging the attention from the ISFJ side for its own self-aggrandizement. And then that causes the ESFP demon to become super bitter because it's not having its own needs met, and it's accusing the ego of basically being depraved in some capacity because of its child function, because it's so emotional or whatever, right? So there's a lot of different ways to look at it. So why couldn't heat be defined as absence of cold? Probably in the same reason why you could see a rock, but there isn't a rock. You can also see heat, right? You can't really see cold, right? So it's a yin and yang concept, Romain. So please check that out. If you haven't read the Tao Te Ching, I recommend you do. That may help from there. So the heart temple, folks, is the second abstract temple of the four temples. The first abstract temple was the soul temple. The mind temple and the body temple, they are the concrete They are the concrete temples. And the temples ultimately work together and they become an engine of creation. And creation is the final result of the four temples, which is important. Creation ultimately is the end result of our race. This is why we exist. Our entire purpose is not only to be a creation, but we are to create ourselves. This is one of the reasons why we also procreate in some capacity. If you talk metaphysically from biblical point of view or even a Quranic point of view, it's really all at the end of the day about creation. The thing is that you have to see the four temples as an engine of creation, because you can't have creation without certain things. Like character is so important, and character ultimately becomes the foundation, because if you're not building your house on a rock, you're just building it on a sand. And if you have really poor character, the creation itself is going to be a poor creation, etc. And then you have to have passion ahead of time. Passion is really important. You have to have the desire. You have to have the desire to create. And if you're not educated, you don't even know what you're doing. You don't even know how to create or actually how to do it. So you have to see creation. It's the end result. And each of these things are the steps or pieces of the collective unconscious of man, basically. These four temples, each of our four sides of our mind, within these temples, that take on these particular roles. And so my role is the role of passion. It's all about being passionate. It's all about having desire. It's all about just being compelled to create, having that fiery desire or absorbing that fiery desire, which is especially important, for me. And I'll be explaining why that is the case throughout this lecture. But the thing is that if you don't have any passion, how are you going to actually be able to create? Like, how is it possible? So I actually was watching recently on YouTube a speech given by, I think it's like the chief of operations or chief creative officer, or he's not the CEO of Microsoft, but he's like maybe the COO of Microsoft. He's the guy who was put in charge of the Windows 11 development project. And he's always talking about user experience. We just typed him recently, last Tuesday, or 2 Tuesdays ago, technically, since yesterday was Tuesday. We just typed him, but I think during the typing session, we got to listen to his speech, and he talks about, people's levels of creativity. And he's like, if someone is passionate about something, their creativity goes up. If they're not passionate about what they're doing, they're not going to be able to create very well. In fact, what they create is just actually going to be, it's going to be terrible. Imagine if, humanity was created as a result of a lack of passion. What would happen then? What would it be like if, our creator didn't have the passion in the process to actually create us, right? And that's a problem. That's a serious issue if you actually think about it. So the best creations are something that comes as a result of having a high amount of passion. So let's actually define that. So we'll go to dictionary.com. We're going to define passion. So any powerful or compelling emotion or feeling as love or hate. Strong amorous feeling or desire, such as love or affection. Strong sexual desire, such as lust. An instance or experience of strong love or sexual desire. A person toward whom someone feels strong love or sexual desire. A strong or extravagant fondness, enthusiasm, or desire for anything. So basically, in order for the creative process to be a complete process, you have to be enthused, right? So in order for this engine of cognition for humanity to be, the best that it could possibly be, to be creators themselves, even to be created themselves, etc., well, guess what? Without passion, it just completely falls apart. Sure, someone has to have good character so that at a base level, so that they can wield that passion properly. Imagine having great passion, but then lacking character. Oof, that creation would end up being terrible as well. So each of these things have to be in the right place. Each of these things, it's not necessarily saying that they have to be, I guess you could say, in balance. But when I say in balance, not saying like the same amount of each one, I'm saying is in balance relative to each other. It's all relative is my point, because again, this is a very subjective discussion. It's got to be all relative. And the heart temple is ultimately where passion is, where it comes from, and it's also why they're all about drama. So, for example, I'll just read what it says in the article here. The defining characteristic of the heart temple is passion. These types are all about passion and heart. They're drawn to human emotion, expression, and drama. ESFPs and INTJs are all about performance. The ESFPs want to embody the performance. The INTJs want to guide the importance. ENTPs are about external passion, and ISFJs consistently facilitate drama around them if there is no drama for them to experience or be a part of. For these types, it's not about the drama itself, but the high emotional intensity that draws them into passion, which is why drama follows them around. It is no surprise that many actors and stage performers belong to the heart temple. The focus of the heart temple is abstract, just like it is with the soul temple, etc. But, I mean, if you look at it from an input, process, output, feedback point of view, expert intuition is the beginning. So let's just actually bring up the whiteboard. We may as well. Let's bring up the whiteboard for this. Awesome. Okay. Let's get some black going right here, and the heart temple. All right. So first things first. Input, process, output, feedback. All cognition is based on this system: input, process, output, feedback. So what are the input functions? Input functions, perceptionally, they're expert intuition, and judging, it is extroverted thinking. Process, we have introverted intuition, and then we have TI as well for the judging side. So perceptions and then judging functions here. And then output. So let's see. So output, extroverted sensing, and then extroverted feeling, and then the feedback is introverted sensing and introverted feeling. So remember, all cognition is based on this model, all of the functions, and it usually follows this order every single time. Now, given the complexity of the temples, they're not always going to flow so seamlessly as the Soul Temple did last week. And that's okay, as long as we understand how to place each of the types and the functions in their particular input, process, output, feedback orders, so that we can get to a point where we can actually identify their specific roles within the temple and how they behave. But expert intuition, one second, my son just injured himself. Hey, buddy. Hey, buddy. He's banged his head against the door. His head just slammed against the door. My goodness. Poor guy. So, alright. As you can see, my house is a total shit show right now. I got a teething child, and it's hard to produce content when this is actually happening. Hopefully I can get to a point where I can afford an office of some kind, so I don't have to have this here. I'm trying to move my studio out so I can actually have my own space, because having an office in my living room is not exactly helpful right now. So, all right. All right, so extrovert intuition provides the input. It's ultimately the vision, basically. Introvert intuition is the desire piece. The extroverted sensing is like the output. Okay, what's doing, what's happening. You can almost see it's like what's reality, etc. And the introverted sensing is the feedback. Well, I want you guys to kind of notice something interesting about this. Another little pattern. So, that's the body, and then this becomes the mind because it's looking at what's real, and then this is the heart, etc. And this ends up becoming the soul, all potential, right? Within that regard, because it is the most abstract. And what's really interesting about the soul temple? You literally have the most abstract type in it, and you already have, which is the ENFP, and then you literally have the most concrete type in it, which is the ESTP, the concrete type, being the processor, etc. Really fascinating, right? And that's within the soul temple. But when it comes to soul heart, yeah, and then yeah, and then body. To be the embodiment of the ideal, right? The embodiment of the ideal. Okay, so just to give you a different idea of perceiving versus judging, etc. So let's move on here. Okay, where's my ink? Yeah, I don't have any land. I'm doing this out of a very small apartment right now, so it's a little frustrating. And I haven't slept for weeks, so I'm kind of just at my wit's end all the time. All right, so let's look at this further. So we have ENTP, which is my type, and we have INTJ, and then we have ESFP, and then we have ISFJ. All right. Input for that process. Output. Feedback. Okay. All right. And then okay. So perception, judging. Let me get a different ink here to go with this. All right. Yes, technically that would be true. The ego functions a temple is, yes, that would be true, Armor, which is a fascinating concept if you think about it. So looking at these types and their relationship with one another, you might be like, okay, this is a little confusing. Okay, so we're just focusing on hero and parent functions, right? hero impairment functions, although I'm not entirely sure like if it would have been necessary to actually look at the inferior functions on the other side, and it may have. So there's so many different ways to interpret this. It's difficult, and there's so many different roles, and so many different types can take on different roles. It's kind of hard to keep track. But let's work backwards. I think working backwards would probably give us the best idea. So we're going to start with the ESFP in the feedback role. Okay, the feedback role for judging. So whereas the ESFP, is producing the output. So let's look at this. So right here, it's performing. It's giving a show, basically. It's showing passion, right? It's all about, passion is the goal. It's all about performing the show. Whereas the ISFJ is experiencing the show. The INTJ is planning the show. And the ENTP is imagining the show. Thank you, B. Wow. My wife just made me a chicken club. It's very nice of her. Right? Imagining the show. My God, that is so distracting. All right. So, but when it comes to the feedback, okay. So, what is ESFPs like? What is the feedback? They're like, I feel good about myself, but it really comes down to the glory. Okay. What's the glory that I'm getting out of the situation? That's why the heart temple can oftentimes be kind of glory oriented, etc. Especially with the INTJ. So like, oh, I want glory, etc. But it's like, okay, what are people going to think about this? What are they going to think? How are they going to take it? So how others take it. I don't know why it's so hard to draw right here. The ENTP process basically is, okay, I think it will work. But it's more also about challenge. It's all about challenge. It's like, what can the ENTP do to challenge? It's kind of where like there's a lot of spite in the process. Spite is everything, right? So how can I challenge it, etc. And then the ISFJ is like, okay, is this accepted? Is it accepted? So all these things are constantly going around in the heads of, somebody who is in the heart temple, basically. Because it's always a show. It's always a performance. I don't, some of you have known me for a while. They see me on Facebook. They see me on Instagram. They see me in Discord, for example, even in the old Discord versus the new Discord. And I have a tendency to publicly shame people. I'm very public. I'm all about being public. I publicly shame people all the time. Of course, I've been publicly shamed my whole life, so it's kind of like, yeah, I don't care if people do it to me. I'm used to it anyway. Like, I'm literally used to it. So that, and since I have to suffer that pain, as much as my wife absolutely hates it when I do this, I'm going to make everyone else suffer the same pain like I have, because what makes them think they get to go through life without suffering the same way that I have? You see what I'm saying? That's one of the hypocrisies of an ENTP. We'll be discussing that in a future episode in the hypocrisy episodes. In fact, we're talking about that this month. But that is one of the hypocrisies. And that's, at least that's where I'm coming from. But again, it's all about putting on a show. Passion is all about putting on a show. It's all about the drama. What is the show? What's the emotional impact going to be, right? So the ISFJ, the output is their emotional impact, right? what is the emotional impact? Is a question that it does. And you know what's really interesting about the ISFJ? They will ensure emotional impact. That's why, they are such huge gossips sometimes, because they're going out of their way, informing other people to make sure that those people are emotionally impacted by whatever happened, even though those people had nothing to do with it, or not even included in all about it. And they like to spread it around. It's kind of like, I don't know, like a pig wallowing in its poop, basically. That's kind of the ISFJ when it comes to gossip. Gossip is a huge problem for the heart temple. They gossip all the time. All the time. It's so funny to me when I hear INTJ women say, "Oh, I don't gossip at all." And it's like, yeah, well, if you actually had a social life, you'd gossip way too much. What are you talking about? Because you'll know that, the gossip that you're talking about is extremely entertaining, etc. Because it's coming from your ESFP subconscious side, right? Gossip is like a major issue because it's all about the show. It's all about the drama. And it's and yes, it's forced shared misery, Yasmin. Exactly. Yes, like the ISTJ. Yes, to a point. So, but that's the thing. Like, ISFJs, like, if they're not experiencing drama in their life, they get extremely bored. And this is another problem with the heart temple. The heart temple really, really struggles with boredom in a big deal. I mean, let's be honest, the ENTP type, my type, is the one who is stereotypically considered to be the one that you want to make sure is like the least bored of all. I remember a blog written by an INTJ woman years ago, which has been taken down, and I wish I saved the post because it was one of the few times in my life that I felt really, really understood. But one of the things that she said in her blog post about her ENTP man is that she's like, "Oh, I've learned to just never leave him alone ever, because he'll start getting bored, and when he gets bored, bad things happen. And he ends up making really poor decisions, or bad things just start happening to him in general. It's like he is the ultimate drama magnet, basically." Whereas, the INTJ oftentimes ends up, going through the process, and, it's like, okay, yeah, like, let me plan the drama, etc. But, the ENTP will just bring drama to it. They create drama because the ENTP, in order to deal with the boredom of life, is imagining the drama itself. And because the ENTP imagines the drama, it's kind of like the law of attraction. You are what you gaze upon, right? So they're actually helping bring drama into existence just by being the ENTP, just by being present. That's why drama always follows an ENTP no matter what happens their entire life. And it's always this way because they're imagining the drama in their minds automatically because they're going out of the way to not be bored. I remember being a little kid constantly, always making sure I had my little, I had one of those mobile PlayStation 1 setups with the mobile screen on it and everything. It was a pretty cool piece of technology. I could literally play PlayStation anywhere I went. It was awesome. And I, engineered that setup and made a little kit, etc., for myself to be able to do that. And because I just absolutely hated being bored. I hated being bored. And if you want to describe my childhood was really, really boring all the time. Especially, growing up, and going into the church every single day. I was literally at church all the time because my mom worked at the church. It was the most annoying thing in the world. And being at church, there was Monday night Bible study for women, so they had their church, and then Tuesday night there was dance practice and youth group, etc. on Tuesday night, and then also choir practice. My mom also had to go to run the phone as an office manager on Tuesday at the church. Wednesday was men's Bible study, sometimes Saturday morning, etc. And then Thursday was actually church day, plus youth group, plus, my mom run the phones, everything. Friday, we'd all go to the pastor's house for literally 5 p.m. till 1 in the morning. That was really annoying. And then Saturday, if we didn't have men's Bible study on Saturday morning, then we were doing chores all day Saturday at all. So no fun there. And then on Sunday, it was church for basically 9 a.m. till 2 p.m. And then like hanging out with people afterwards I didn't care about or didn't know or whatever. But I was basically bored out of my mind my entire childhood. And I constantly got in trouble as a result of that. It was insane. And I ended up literally imagining drama happening to me. And then I realized that through doing so, I was actually transmuting drama into existence because of how bored I was. And it was just the most annoying thing in the entire world. So no, Robert, it was not the PSP. It was before the PSP, and it would have been great to have a PSP. Trust me, it would have been amazing. INTJs, they're trying to process things out, and the old moniker where it's like, oh, the INTJ thinks about having sex more than actually having sex is because the INTJ is the person who is planning the show. They are planning the show all the time, and you could say like this type is probably the most hypersexual of all of the types within this temple. Although the thing is though is that that's on human nature alone. Human nature alone, these types would be the most sexual of all the types. The thing is that when you combine nature with nurture, it's actually INFJ who ends up being the most sexual, and ESTP. Like ESTP men and INFJ women, basically, when you actually consider gender and you consider human nurture and you consider human nature, they're the ones who end up having the highest volume of sex out of all of the types. But the thing is though is that INTJ women and ESFP women end up having insanely high body counts, whereas when in the men, you have ENTPs and ISFJs having even higher body counts, potentially. ESFP men and INTJ men in my life just really don't have as much body counts as everyone thinks. They really don't. Granted, the INTJ is a bit more masculine. The thing is that I often see INTJ men squandering their masculinity because they put their hope into the soulmate myth. And it's really, really frustrating when they do that. So, but yeah, like the INTJ, because they're planning the show, they want to think about sex more than actually having sex. The ESFP is like, okay, yeah, we're doing this. It's all about the doing. And the ISFJ wants to receive that sexual experience. And you got to understand, like, all creativity is sexual. Where are you heading? Okay. So, that's just kind of, how that happens. And that's from a perceptual standpoint. But you got to understand, like, another reason why the heart temple is so sexual is that because from a perception function standpoint, they have perceiving heroes, right? It's all about being the other perceiving hero approach. Whereas, like, in the soul temple is perceiving heroes. But when you're perceiving heroes based on heart, sexuality means, everything to these types. The ENTP is going out of the way to be wanted. The INTJ is wanting to have true sexual freedom in the bedroom and not be limited in any way, shape, or form. And that's why they end up having to plan, because they're actually planning around the limitations that their partner would put them on, which is really, really sad if you think about it. The ESFP is just down for whatever and just wants to show everyone how good they are in the bedroom, for example. And the ISFJ just wants to be used and abused in the bedroom as much as possible so they can have the absolute full experience, to experience the show, basically. And, that's, sexuality and passion go hand in hand. And that's kind of one of the ways that it just manifests for these types as a result. It's really central to who they are as people, etc. But again, like when you look at nurture and gender, that can really get in the way and it can really skew things. So, but beyond that, when you look at the decision-making side, it's like, okay, well, that's nice, but how is this other person going to take this experience? How is this drama actually going to work out? The INTJ with SE inferior is like, not sure about that. what are other people going to think? We should probably be responsible about this. The ENTP is just like, who cares? The ENTP is like, I think it'll work anyway. And if that means people have to suffer our drama, if there's, bad consequences or negative things that are going to happen as a result, oh, well, don't care. Not my fault. It's going to happen anyway. They should get over it. And then the ISFJ is like, but are people going to accept this drama? Is it acceptable? Is it going to make enough emotional impact? What's the impact going to be? This is why the ISFJ worries about impact. They worry with their SE nemesis because they're worried about the impact. You see what I'm saying? Because, you can see that the perception functions are more king of the heart temple, whereas in the soul temple, it seems like the decision-making functions are more king in the soul temple, even though it's actually parent functions, where it's hero functions this one. It just really goes between perceptions versus judging, because if you consider the soul temple, judging has higher value because you're judging their own character, judging the character of others, whereas the show itself is a very perceiving thing. It's all about perceiving. So perceiving is king when it comes to the heart temple. And then the ESFP is like, well, am I being glorified for this experience? It's funny because my stepfather-in-law and my mother-in-law, my mother-in-law's an ISFJ, he's an ESFP. And somehow, some way, you have 3 people at the heart temple and my wife present, and then all of a sudden, he's the feedback and he ends up getting all the glory in almost any situation. And it's so funny. It's so funny to listen to his ISFJ wife complain, well, how come he gets all the glory all the time? How come he gets it all? And where that happens is it's just like, well, I mean, he's the feedback piece of the heart temple. I mean, that's where that happens. Can you text me what you're doing, please? So yeah, it's very fascinating to just kind of see how that goes, and watching all these types interact with each other, as a result of that. But yeah, each of them take on these roles, so when it comes to the perceiving side, the ENTP is the input, the ENTP is the vision. They are the one creating the show, or at least the need for a show, basically. And even though it's the ISFJ that ends up receiving the show, and if they're not receiving the show, they're going to facilitate the show. It's like the ISFJ. They walk into the room and they see this whole room covered in dominoes. The ISFJ eventually is not going to be able to help themselves. They're going to be that person that's going to press the domino to just see what it all does, etc. Because from their standpoint, wow, this is all made for me. I get to push the button, right? They can't resist not pushing the red button. Or like a little kid in an elevator wanting to push the buttons to make the elevator go up and down, etc. They want to have that honor to press the button, okay? They want to experience the entire show. The ENTP walks in the room and they imagine the room of dominoes, etc. That's basically what's going on. So yeah. Okay. All right, cool. All right, so okay, well, at least someone understands it. I appreciate that. I don't know. I kind of feel like tonight's episode is a little bit drier from last week's or for last month's one. So I think it's because this is my life. This is just how I always am. If the ISFJ doesn't have a show, or if they don't have a drama in their life, they're going to gossip. They're going to find that emotional impact, and they're ultimately going to create it with their ENTP subconscious. It's like, hey, if there isn't something going on, I'm going to make it happen myself. And you know what? They're not even conscious that they do this. And they're like, oh, are you serious? You really think I'm such a drama llama? No way. The reality of the situation is they're the biggest drama llama.
I hate it.
Yeah.
That's the number one thing I hate about ISFJs.
Yeah, it's how they have to make it if there isn't any.
They're like that Pokemon meme.
They're that Pokemon, like the Pikachu Pokemon
Yeah,
meme.
where he's like surprised,
Yeah.
and I'm like, shut up,
Yeah, shut up.
just shut up. Like,
Yeah, it's funny because dealing with my mother-in-law this last week, and she was called out hard for being a huge drama facilitator in the family. And just watching Railgun just like put her in her place, being like, "Woman, where is your character?" She's going all Soul Temple on my mother-in-law, and I was like, "Hell yeah!" But of course, at the same time, me being the ENTP, I'm just sitting over here like, "Hey, I'm enjoying the show. Nice drama going." You know what I'm saying? I'm trying to hide my drama llama ISFJ subconscious while this whole thing is going down, you know? Yeah, well, I mean, folks, let's be honest. Relgan and mine's relationship, our marriage, can be really, really fun. And just having some of these crazy interactions, like these crazy stories that we like all this crap going on in our life. It's like, yeah, it's always interesting. You know, that's just what it's all about. You know, having that experience. And yeah, they do look so innocent about the drama. Yeah, it's just okay. Almertage asks, would this temple also struggle the most with the idea of only having one partner due to their desire for all types of passion? Not necessarily. Out of all of these types, the INTJ craves monogamy the most. They really, really crave monogamy the most, especially INTJ men, because FI child combined with NI hero combined with the masculine idealism, uh, they INTJ men by default believe, if not are, the embodiments of the soulmate myth. But it's a myth. It's not true, and having that aspect of their masculinity just completely shattered when it comes to accepting the truth of our world and the truth of hypergamy, they really, really struggle with that. INTJ women do actually believe in that ideal themselves, but they can't get over their own hypergamy, and that's why INTJ women are notorious for having some of the highest body counts out of all the 16 types. INJ women they have very, very high body counts typically, in my experience, and then also so do ESPs as well. Those types, like they're the ones having all the sex basically. But when it comes to like INTJ women, it's especially interesting because women in the heart temple use sexuality as a way to facilitate drama in their life, and which is hilarious because that's exactly what my wife accused her mother of when she got with her father the first time around. And I was like, dang. But she's right. She's right about that. And it's so interesting to see how that actually manifests over time. Because what bigger show is there on the earth than a sexual interlude, than a sexual situation? There is no bigger show. There isn't one. And that's why these types take sexuality. It is probably the highest priority to these types out of all of the 16 types. It's not so much with second priority being the soul temple, they prioritize it secondly, but like the body temple, the mind temple, they just don't care about sex as much. They really don't. But the soul temple and the heart temple absolutely do. And it's because, they're both abstract. They're more valuing perception over judging, although the heart temple values perception the most. They like aesthetics. This is why the perception, in terms of art, the heart temple appreciates art the most, or can see art, or they want to be art in some capacity. Although it's funny watching ESFPs get really jealous of ISFPs and their art, or even INFPs of their art. It's just so fascinating to me to watch that, when ESFPs don't even realize that they have their own capabilities when it comes to art, because they don't have to be a painter. They can just put on a show of some kind. They can be in the band, or they can be dancing, or they could be in the play. They can be in the theater. There's so many different ways of doing it. The ESFP, and this is one of the reasons why ESFPs really struggle going to watch performances of some kind, because deep down they're just like, well, I want to be in the performance. And unless they're using their INTJ subconscious to analyze the performance so that they can learn how to perform better, they're really not interested in going. Guess what? Same thing with my wife. Taking her to a football game, it's just like she's just bored out of her mind. She's like, well, if I'm not on the field, then what's the point? And of course, she did play football for a while.
Attention whore.
Attention whore.
That's what my brother used to always call me.
Yeah, well, you can always whore on my attention. It's okay.
Okay.
I'll let you. So that's what it comes down to, because remember, the ESFP is looking for attention, but the ENTP is seeking desire, seeking to be desired. The INTJ provides that desire, but the INTJ often falls short of providing that desire because they're just planning to desire. It often doesn't actually come in. That's why ENTPs, men or women, really like it when NJs of the opposite sex come at them and they're like, well, I just want you. I can't explain it. I just want you. And they really, really are receptive to that because they just want to be wanted. That's all it is. Whereas an ESTP or an ESFP man or woman, they end up being sexual with the person who sticks around the most. The person who's still around, because then they're like, oh, well, that person values me, or that person thinks highly of me because they've stuck around. But it's so interesting to see just how the drama just kind of like flows like this life force or like the lifeblood of human interactions. This is what keeps things fresh. It's the heart temple's job to keep things fresh and keep things sharp. It's just that like the ENTP struggle for boredom. It ends up creating a potential for drama. The INTJ ends up planning the drama entirely out. The ESFP ends up seeing it through and performing the drama, and the ISFJ experiences the drama. And if the ISFJ is not experiencing the drama, well, guess what? The situation goes in reverse. It's like, oh crap, I need some drama in my life. So they end up, whether or not they're aware of it or not, they're going to start gossiping. They're going to start facilitating drama. They're going to go find drama. They're going to seek drama, and drama will occur. And then the ESFP side's like, okay, wow, you got some drama there. I wonder what I could do with that, as they're thinking with their NI inferior. And then all of a sudden, the ESFP takes on the INTJ role of planning the show. And then the INTJ all of a sudden is able to take the role of, oh, I get to be the performer now. Because the ISFJ just randomly created drama. And then the ENTP finally gets to sit back and watch everyone, while the ENTP is just sitting there in their chair looking like this, looking at his woman twirling around on the pole dance, and it's just a show just for him. You see what I'm saying? Which is a scene in the movie True Lies. It's also a scene in the movie The Aviator, basically, although there wasn't a stripper pole involved with that scene. And that was kind of a creepy scene for other reasons, but we don't need to discuss that on the show. What?
We can get a stripper pole.
Yeah, we can get a stripper pole.
I already have the one picked out.
You already have it picked out. Wow, look at you. Awesome. I'm down. I'm down for that. Drama is passion. Yes. Rachel's like, I understand, girl. Good times. So when it comes to and again, it's all about perception. The perception of the show, giving the show, experiencing the show, facilitating the show, all of it. And it really comes down to glory. Glory is ultimately what the heart temple is going for. They are glory seekers, all of them. Even I am with my ESFP superego. I have to admit that I still am a glory seeker, and I don't like admitting that because it makes me feel dirty. It makes me feel ashamed. But the reality of the situation is that it's true. In some capacity, I really like glory, but the kind of glory that I'm looking for is not the glory of me standing in front of a bunch of people like, oh, everyone loved Chase. No, it's not about that. It's more about the glory that comes from having self-accomplishment, the glory from the fact that I've been doing martial arts and I have sustained many injuries because I'm taking that Tyler Durden approach, who is an ENTP like me, where he says, I don't want to go through life, or I don't want to die without having any scars. And that's the glory of the ENTP. It really comes down to glory. Glory, glory, glory. It's kind of like here's the ISFJ version. The ISFJ, my ISFJ mother-in-law and my mother, they all have this glory problem because they're always looking for glory because they're always trying to show off their family. Look at this. Look at all the drama I've been through in my whole life, even drama that I've created. Look at all this drama that I've survived and endured, and I still have such a healthy, good, capable family who they're all on their own, and they're all independent, and they produce, and they don't need me, and it's just, and then look at them, they're so cute, and they're producing children, and I'm so important because of glory, yay! And why INTJ doesn't want glory with their ESFP subconscious. This is what causes the INTJ to expect, oftentimes, monogamous relationships. Because it's like, okay, yeah, I want to be the one who's getting all of the attention, all of the glory from this one person, because I'm glory seeking with my ESFP subconscious. Again, it's all about glory. Glory, glory, glory. Glory is the reward that the heart temple has for itself. That's what it is. Just kind of like, so I've been watching this show called You, but starring Penn Badgley with my wife. And I hate the show because the ENTP is so ungodly beta. I can't stand how beta is. Like, here he is murdering people for, like, his, quote, one true love, believes in the soulmate myth. And she's an INFJ hoe. She's like, yes, the biggest whore in Kazakhstan. She is such a hoe, so hypergamous. Her body count's insanely high, and it doesn't even faze him, and he doesn't even have self-respect, and it just really, really pisses me off when I watch that. But it's all part of his drama, and he's just trying to get that passion, because he wants that passion. We want passion to move through this input, process, output, feedback loop. We want to be part of the Ouroboros of passion, because at the end of the day, he is seeking glory. To know that after all this work, I still got the girl. After all this effort, I still got the girl. I still won. She chose me at the end of the day. Any hero, she chose me, blah, blah, blah. It's so funny because, like, I remember being, a teenager and thinking that. That's real juvenile thinking for an ENTP. It really is, etc. And it's so funny to watch INTJ, men and women, or INTJs, the opposite sex of ENTPs, facilitate that juvenile thinking that is not concrete. Because remember, folks, these two types right here are the abstract types, okay? And still abstract, judging or perception, and because of that, they end up creating, because it's abstraction oftentimes comes off as juvenile, whereas concrete oftentimes comes off as mature. You see what I'm saying? Because it's it's closer to reality. That's a problem. But then again, the heart temple itself is an abstract temple. So oftentimes, abstract temples end up coming off more juvenile than the concrete ones. Haven't you ever noticed that? How ENFJs and ENTJs and INFPs and INTPs, them behaving juvenile compared to mature, at least in terms of what everyone thinks collectively around them, it just kind of seems like they're the more mature. Well, it's because they're part of the concrete temples, okay? And you could say that the heart temple is even more juvenile than the soul temple, that's for sure. Yeah. Inspired passion through drama. That's true, Raka. That's absolutely true. So anyway, folks, this is the whole point of the heart temple. The heart temple is passion. It is all about facilitating drama, creating drama, planning drama, but it's ultimately also for glory. Drama for the sake of glory, and the glory of passion itself. That is what these people are seeking. This is what they want in their life. And according to Chris Taylor, especially for the ENTP and also, the ENFP, it's like a form of fulfillment. I get fulfillment through the glory of passion, etc. INTJs get fulfillment through performing the drama, etc. ESFPs get the fulfillment through the glory of having absolute freedom of creativity as a result. And the ISFJs, it's like, wow, I actually get to be chosen, and I actually get to be the center of this drama. I'm not just some boring house plant or a wallflower.
No, you still are.
Oh my God. Passion is glorious. Yes, it is. So yeah, again, it's all about emotional impact. We so desperately want to be emotionally impacted. It's so funny every time. Like, I remember when my ex, who is an INTJ, actually all of my INTJ exes, they come to me and be like, "You're so emotional," they tell me. And I'm like, actually, I have FI tricks, not really emotional, but I guess as emotional as FE child would be. But I'm sorry, FI child's more emotional. And I'm like, okay, pot calling the kettle black, shut up. You don't actually know what you're talking about. But it's all about emotional impact. And it's like, oh, I wish you were that. It's really just the INTJ being like, I wish you were reacting to me that way. I wish you were reacting to me. And it's like, well, listen, I'm not going to react to you if you're not going to initiate with me. That's the difference. If I'm not the object of your desire, it's not going to happen. You see what I'm saying? Whereas, my wife, like, for example, she's constantly looking for attention all the time, constantly looking for reactions all the time. We did this little exercise last night where we wrote down each other's needs as part of, we were practicing for this new thing that we're about to release called Real Love Language. And we wrote down each other's needs and whatnot. And I wrote down her needs, and her number one need I wrote down was attention, which makes sense because she's Essie Hero, basically. But I wrote down my number one need as like, okay, well, I want to be wanted. I want to be desired. I want to be, taken to that passion. And, it's so funny because, like, looking all of the hoops that my wife has had to go through to get to me, how long was it? Years? At least 2.5 years of effort. And she went through all the hoops, and, it makes me feel wanted that she chose me for that long, and she went through all of that effort to get to that point, even though there was no guarantee of an outcome, which is different for her because usually she don't do anything unless she has a guarantee of an outcome.
I was like, I was almost as bad as that guy on you.
Almost as bad as that guy on you. Yeah, but it's okay because you're a woman.
At least I didn't murder anybody. Not close. I'm just joking. Don't quote that.
Men are not supposed to be simping, but women are supposed to be simping. So girls out there that you hear this, if you got a man in your life, or you got a man that you had a thing for, whatever, you better be simping for him.
Unless he gets a restraining order against you.
Unless he gets a restraining order. Yeah, well, you did stalk me. Yeah. I enjoyed it,
but you
I'll
liked
admit.
It. You even invited me to go to Legos with you.
Yeah, I did invite her to go to Legos with me. That was funny. Yeah. She did. Simping ain't easy, huh? Railgun is so cute, they said. So yeah.
Until I become a stalker.
Until I become a stalker. Yeah, exactly. All right, cool. So this is the end of the episode. So real quick questions about the Heart Temple. How they have this struggle with boredom. How secretly they're actually the biggest gossips of all the types. Even though they don't want to admit it, especially the ISFJ doesn't want to admit it the most. I mean, I kind of don't want to admit it, but it's true. Damn it. And how they're actually secretly glory seekers constantly, and actually really juvenile.
No.
Hey, come on. I'm getting exposed here.
It's okay that you think it's cool, but don't die.
Yeah, I know, right? Don't die.
That's the number one goal.
Yeah. That's why I'm spiteful. Spiteful creates the drama. It creates the passion. So, okay, how do they view other temples? That's a good question. A little bit, but it takes life a little bit more easy. I think the body temple, which is all creation, I know how I view them. It's not necessarily how it is that way, but I oftentimes view the body temple as very stuffy. I kind of see them as very stuffy with just kind of how they live their life or how they do their ways. And I think it's because they need things slow to make sure that their creation is accurate, as a result. I often see the mind temple as people who are just the biggest know-it-alls ever. And it's really, really frustrating. And they won't even let me disagree or even give me a chance to debate them sometimes because they've already made their mind up. They're so smart, they're dumb. Dunning-Kruger effect. That's really rough. The Soul Temple, though, I love the Soul Temple because I realize that sometimes my passion can be out of control, which leads me to having really bad character. And the Soul Temple helps me actually improve my own personal character. And this is one of the benefits of my marriage to Railgun, because I married her because I knew it would be challenging, but I also knew that it would be something that would improve my personal character over time. It would sharpen me, it would make me better. So from the Soul Temple, I really like having Soul Temple people in my life because I really oftentimes am concerned that my passion can get out of control, the drama can get out of control, and they help me rein myself in, basically, and remind me that character is important. But then again, I also remind them that risk is important, because while my temple is certainly okay with taking risks, even ESFPs, let's be straight, the Soul Temple sometimes can be really risk averse, and I don't appreciate that about them. But the Mind Temple is willing to take risks, whereas the Body Temple not so much. So it's interesting, like, to see these different interactions amongst each of the temples and how they're doing it, to go from that perspective. Okay, we got some more questions here. A couple more. Number one rule of life: don't die. Glorious purpose. Loki, the ENTV. Okay, you got me there, Robert Potts. You got me there. Glorious purpose. How do you make an ISFJ stop being such desire feigns in the workplace? Feigns? You mean fiends?
You just say.
What does that mean, Robert Brasa?
Make your own clique and disclude them.
Make your own clique and disclude
That's
them.
coming from the pedagogue.
Yeah, that's coming from the pedagogue, the ESTP.
I do that all the time. It's great.
Yeah.
So
The Soul Temple is the pedagogue temple to the Heart Temple. So, like, why not, right?
You just invite the ISFJ's closest friends to your clique and disclude
Yeah.
the ISFJ.
Yeah.
You just suck all the life out of them.
Would they take the sort of passion in their job too? Of course they would. That's why they get bored and then they don't want to work. Would they be most unstable in careers and switching careers consistently? Yes, absolutely they would. The only one that's remotely stable is the ISFJ. The problem is the ISFJ eventually will just not be able to handle it anymore, and then they'll move on in some capacity, or they're forced to move on in some capacity, especially as they get older. Robert Rossa says, the way ISFJs manage drama, they can create an old boys club in the workplace, and it pisses me off. Yeah, they can. The Soul Temples for building character, yes. My previous work group consisted of these 4 types running the show together. This is really making my head spin in reflection, making some interesting connections. And we get effing drama. Is this why I love risks and I love someone really giving me thrill? Yes. Do ENTPs get jealous when others experience more glory than them? No, not necessarily. Our glory is a personal glory that we reserve for ourselves. And we know that it's only something that we can achieve for ourselves. We don't get jealous of other people having that glory. It's not about that. It's just that we know that it's like something that we can get ourselves, but we just don't want to be able to be inhibited from the path of us getting it for ourselves, basically. Soul and heart are also the shadows of each other from all 4 sides. Awesome. Well, that's everything, folks. That's the end of the episode. Thanks for watching, and hopefully, guys, you enjoyed this. I'm sorry for being super late and such a slow start. It's been very difficult for me. Otherwise, thank you all for everything, and I'll see you guys next month for season 21 or season 18, episode 22. So, have a good night, guys. Later.